welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, the podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On this episode, I'm going to do something just a little bit untraditional of some of my previous episodes. This is all things movies and television, so I was having a thought and I figured I would share it with you guys because these are the types of things that occupy my overthinker brain. So the other night, a friend of mine had messaged me to let me know he had started a new show and he thought I would be interested in it. It was called Icons Unearthed, I believe, and they're doing like this series behind the scenes and kind of telling the story of how Star Wars came into being. And immediately he thought of me and was like, I think you might be interested in this. He had mentioned somewhere along this conversation that, oh, you probably know all of these facts, but I find it interesting and I wanted to pass it along. And I remember us sort of having this little brief conversation that has stuck with me, and I've been thinking about it, and I figured I might as well just make a podcast episode of it and sort of share my ramblings and let you guys kind of ponder with me, I guess. So my thought to him was, I wonder how I would be, or if I would be the same person without Star Wars. And that sort of spawned this giant overthinking rabbit hole in my brain of, would I be the person that I was, without the movies that I've seen? And I guess it kind of comes down to the, is this nature versus nurture kind of conversation and personalities? Was I just predispositioned in my brain to really love stories? Was that just a part of my born personality, and therefore, movies just is part of that? And then what about those people? And I brought this up with my friend. So I was like, what about like in Victorian times or back in the day before movies were a thing? What was it that sort of conditioned people or morphed people into what they were? Was music then a bigger part of everyone's life, or were books a bigger part, or was there something else, that kind of helped build you into the person that you are? Or really, have movies had any impact on building the person that you are? And, in my brain, instantaneously my thought is like, of course, of course movies have an impact, and of course music has had an impact, and books have an impact. But I don't know if like I would be a different person. It's hard to have these sort of theoretical conversations because it's like I will never, get into the multiverse of madness with Doctor Strange and know what a different version of me raised differently would have been like. I cannot remember a time in my childhood where there wasn't a movie playing somewhere. We watched movies in my family a lot, and so I feel like that was so much a vital part of my childhood, or a vital part of who I am, that I'm not sure if it had an effect, but I feel like, of course, it must have, And speaking of like just current times, I wouldn't have a podcast and I wouldn't be passionate about talking about movies if it hadn't had some change on my personality or how I feel or how I think or what I relate to. And I kind of got down this path of thinking like, I don't know in my regular day-to-day life if as many things give me like the level of serotonin that watching like movie trailers and things like that do. Like just going to Doctor Strange for the pure all I wanted out of that movie was the Avatar trailer at the beginning. And then, watching all of these trailers come out now, like Sandman trailer that just dropped, and the Game of Thrones, it's not Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon trailer that just dropped. And I'm like giddy, like a 4-year-old at Christmas, just like, clapping hands and just jumping up and down. Like, I'm so excited about House of the Dragon, and I'm so excited to like see a lot of these new shows that are coming out. And I can't imagine like that has no effect on who I am as a person. And especially because a lot of the movies that I remember watching as a kid and being really, mesmerized with would be, like I've talked about my favorite movie in the past, which was Legend. And, Star Wars was a huge one for me. I never saw Star Wars, in the theaters. Those came out really before my time. So the first Star Wars films that I ever got to see in theaters were the prequels. But, it's just like all of those movies that have stayed with me, I guess, this whole time, they all had such wonderful lessons to be learned. Like Star Wars has so many great lessons in it about forgiveness and about, the Force, something that binds us to every other living person, and that no one is too far gone that can't be saved, I mean, I guess except for the Emperor, definitely throw him over. But like, like Darth Vader, Luke didn't give up on him in the end. He hoped to be able to at least bring him some kind of salvation, and in Legend, it was huge for me as a kid watching the character of Lily take responsibility for her actions in that movie and, really try and set things right and be bold and be brave and not just kind of wait around for someone to rescue her. And, those are things that I don't think really took hold in my brain or that I really understood that I was learning at the time. But they're definitely things that I'm like, oh, that's where I get that from, or that's why maybe I am more prone to kindness when people haven't been very kind to me, because that's the lesson that Star Wars gives you, like that you try, you do your best. And I can't imagine, I guess, at the end of the day, not having those things, and especially like watching this show with Icons on Earth, like all of the details that they're bringing out about Star Wars, quite a few of them are things that, I've definitely heard before and, been informed on, I guess, but there are quite a few of them that I haven't heard before. And just knowing like every piece of the puzzle that had to go into Star Wars and how close it came to not even being the film that we all know and love, it really is just like one of those things where I don't know. I mean, I don't know what any of you guys believe in, but it's like at a certain level, I have to think like Star Wars was meant to be created, it was meant to be something that was given to the world. It's no different than like works of classical music to me. Those things move you at your core for a reason. And those types of creative things, whether it be a book or a song or, what have you, if it stays with the community for generations, I really feel like that's something that is just a universal, I mean, it's not like Star Wars was only popular in the United States. It is popular everywhere. It's a universal, what is the word that I'm looking for? It it is a universal force. You know, it binds people together in a way that nothing else could do quite in the same way. You know, you can meet someone from a different part of the country, and if you both super love Star Wars, that's an instant conversation. That's an instant friend. And those types of things don't really happen. You know, I mean, I guess sports, but you know, it's like, well, maybe that's the same, right? What movies is for me is sports for someone else. And do we need those things? Is it pivotal in our lives and in who we become to have something that just is a driving force for us? And I definitely think that that is a thing. And I think that movies are definitely a big one for me. So I don't know if this is just random ramblings or weird things. Certainly don't listen to it all the way through if this is not something that you ever ponder, but I thought I would just put that out there to the audience and see what you guys think. So let me know what you think. Definitely follow me on Instagram. I can see the comments much better there if that's what you're hoping to do. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.